Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a code walkthrough of a React Native Expo and Appwrite application demonstrating file upload to Appwrite storage, and I'm creating a universal app in Expo. So this is an Android version, this is a web browser version, and this is the iOS version. So because internally inside of Appwrite, there's a separate React Native library for interacting with Expo, which is different from the web library for interacting with Expo. I had to do some interesting things to make it work inside. I kept the app as simple as possible because I just want to provide it as a template for you. I'm going to walk through it and explain everything to you after I demo the app. There's no setup of Appwrite. There's plenty of videos out there to show you how to set up Appwrite. In fact, I'm using Appwrite Cloud. And when I start to discuss configuration, I will show you how I'm utilizing it. So hopefully you find this helpful. Please make sure you like and subscribe, share with your friends. So a quick demo of the app. It literally just used the image picker, upload image to storage. So on my camera, comes up, pick, crop, choose, upload successful. Let's quickly go to, the website one. We'll upload different images so that we can see it working. So in this one, of course, you can't pick an image, so it's just going to open up your file. Upload successful. That was a carbon image. And then this is just going to pick the fake image that you get on your camera roll in Android. So we'll just pick this one. And upload successful. All right, so now let's go to Appwrite and take a look at them. Okay, for those of you who aren't familiar with Appwrite, I'm logged into my Appwrite console and I can see my projects. This project 1 is my current project. So if I click on it, I can see all the information about my project. If I go to storage and I go to my bucket, you can see here's the Android image uploaded. This is the website image from Carbon, something that I clipped. And then the last one here is from the iOS app. I clipped a screenshot from another app. So you see that it uploaded everything. Okay, so let's go back now and take a look at the code that made all this happen. All right, so I'm in the source code and let's take a look at what we got. If we start right at the app.ts, you can see that I made this very simple. I only have one file in it. I've kind of put everything inside of it. Since app.ts has everything in it, we'll just start, let's see, here with the view. So here's where we're just kind of rendering the output. All it is this button that you click. When you click, it kind of starts the whole process. And the whole process starts with picking an image. So let's go up to pick image. You see here in pick image, I've installed and I'm using the Expo image picker. So all pick image does is it picks the image, we get the results from the image, we console log it, and then we pass it to this function called handle image picker. Handle image picker, if it's not canceled, then we attempt to upload it. And kind of this is what we're all here for, is the upload image async. And then the upload image async, the default API call is to call create file. You pass the bucket ID, you pass a unique identifier for the file you're about to upload, and then you pass the file in. And so here's where you start to see the platform differences. So on the web, I can just pass in the file object that got returned from image picker and it will upload it fine. Let's just go to the web flow first. And then what the next thing we do is after we upload it, we call this get file view, which returns a URL that we can use to render the image. We pass it the bucket ID. This response ID is the ID that I got back from creating it, so it's a unique identifier for the image that I just uploaded. I console log everything out to the console, and I return the error. So you can kind of see, if I open up my console log, some history of the uploads. So you can see here where after the file gets uploaded, you can see this object that comes back here that has all the permissions on it, the updated, the file that was uploaded, its name, and its unique identifier. And then you can see following that is this URL, which is a unique URL that you can use to actually render the image. So you can see here is the Android image. All right, so that was pretty straightforward for web because you just get a file, you pass the file in and you upload it. Now for React Native, so on iOS and Android, we follow the exact same flow, except here we need to, because the way that files are handled on React Native, you can't just pass the file object in and get it uploaded. I've seen a couple of different approaches, but this is the approach that worked for me. And so that's what I'm going to cover. So when preparing the native file, we get the actual URL from the file, and from that we extract the additional information that we need, which is we need to get a file name, we need to get the size of the file, we need to get the type, and then we pass in a URI. The URI passes in this href, which is a reference to where the file is. So this creates the object that then we return. So let's go back to our image upload. We return this object here. We pass it instead of the file object to create file, and the file gets uploaded. And that's pretty much it. Now, some interesting things that I found in my discovery of this was, one, the lack of documentation around React Native file upload. So if we take a look back at the documentation, so here's where you get the SDK to download it. And then what you usually find is in the documentation, they have these like example snippets of code. One thing you'll notice immediately is like React Native is not on here. So you're not going to find the answer to your problem here. So then if I hop to API reference, we get to similar behavior. So let's jump down to storage. And you go up to the top here, and they do have React Native here. So let's select React Native. So now we're looking for React Native, and we go to create file, and this is what we get. So we followed this pattern, but I don't really know what pick single is. And so that kind of threw me off. And then if you come down here, it says that this parameter file was a string, which is required. Binary file, Appwrite SDKs provide helpers to handle file input. Learn about file input. So let's try that. So now we're in file input. And once again, we only get this web, Flutter, Android, and Apple. I don't see anything here that's specific to React Native for how I get a file uploaded. It's been so long since I figured out how to get it to work that I don't even remember where I found the code to get it to work. But that's how I ended up, that's what my solution is. And so kind of my feedback, if anyone from Appwrite is out there listening, is like, we need to do better on the React Native documentation. So, but now let's circle back to one of the other things that I had to do, because if you remember, this is a universal app. It runs in the browser, on iOS, and on Android. So if you notice here in the code, I have this AppwriteClientFactory, which when called, here inside of, where is it called? It's called right at the start of my app.tsx, and it returns an instance of a storage object. So as it says here, this returns a platform-specific Appwrite Client SDK. So let's take a look inside my Appwrite Client. And so this is a factory, and what it's going to do, it's going to return you a storage object, and it can be expanded. But the way that Appwrite works is there's basically different services that you utilize to get access to specific things in the application. As you can see, I'm using storage, so that's what I needed. Now, what's interesting is, as I said, the React Native API is different from the web API. This is the React Native. These two get me the React Native API, and this gets me the web API. Now, so for the rest of the code, you'll see it's marked as APW for Appwrite Web, Appwrite React Native. So just to kind of walk through what this thing does, I will jump to the code and then refer back to the interfaces as needed. So what happens when you call this static get instance, it checks if there's no instance, then it validates the configuration. And so these are environment variables that need to be set in your Expo, in your .env file for your Expo project. It gives you the Appwrite endpoint you're going to be calling, the Appwrite project ID, and the Appwrite bundle ID. If I don't have an endpoint or project ID, I throw an error. If I'm not on the web, then I know I need a bundle ID, so I throw an error. And then this validate config returns the values. So now we're in here. If we are on the web, Then I create a new client using the Appwrite web library. See, APW, I get my client, I set my endpoint config, I set my project config, and then I return the Appwrite web specific instance of a storage object. See, it's using Appwrite web. If I'm not on web, then I use the Appwrite React Native client. I set the endpoint, I set the project, I set that you need the bundle ID. Well, it's recommended that you use the bundle ID when using React Native client. And then I get the Appwrite React Native storage object and create that using this Appwrite React Native client. And then I return the instance. So the basic idea is that when you request the instance of a client, it determines your platform and provides you a platform-specific client. As I said, right now I'm just returning storage, but when I integrate database, in this instance, you'll see there will be actually, I'll just quickly show what that might look like. I'll just do it for one of them. So on here, I might say import account. So account is what you need when you get the user information. And so if we wanted to have access to the user information down here, we would come in, we say account, and now we're going to return that object. It's complaining about the type. So we go up here, and we have to add account for both of them up here. So account. And so that's the Appwrite web, and then the Appwrite React Native account instance. So that's what this is. So now, so just for completeness, let me put it on the web too. And so you can see here, we're using the Appwrite web. We're using the account object that's associated with Appwrite web to create a web-specific instance that can now be utilized with the web client. And so maybe if people find this interesting, I'll continue on with this kind of cross-platform Expo Universal solution using Appwrite, but that's kind of the approach I'm taking. So just to wrap up, problems finding documentation, uploading files in React Native, problem solved. Wanted to create a universal app, so had to create this Appwrite client that creates an instance of the client based on your platform. All this code will be provided. Please take a look at it. Give me your feedback, share your thoughts. Thanks for stopping by. Bye now.